So we're going to be talking about all the ugly stuff, how reality is different from our perceptions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the crux of a lot of what we're going to talk about, really. When you're growing up, you see, we keep talking about the media, but it's quite influential for a lot of autistic people and autistic girls in terms of, it's quite difficult to watch people in depth in the real world.
Yeah.
But TV can offer you that, and it can really sink in, and your expectations are set.
I think as an autistic woman, I think there's additional issues because as an autistic person, you're quite vulnerable to exploitation and things. But as an autistic woman, I think you would have grown up with a lot of narratives like, if he's mean to you, it's because he likes you.
Yeah, I never got that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw it, didn't understand it though.
Yeah.
But that starts really early, like in the playground. If they pull your pigtails over ever, then they like you.
Yeah.
But for me, that meant he's assaulted me, and I'm sorry, Kyle, but I'm gonna drag you around the classroom by your hair.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we do process things a little bit differently. Definitely.
Yeah. But for me, again, it meant that I was willing to put up with a lot, I think. And I think that that's something that I've only really challenged in the last few years. When Me Too came about and things like that, I started thinking, okay, hold on, that actually doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah.
Well, if you dress that way, then you deserve to be assaulted, or...
I was really surprised when Me Too started. I thought I had processed and made sense of everything that had happened, and all of a sudden, more and more stuff that I hadn't even remembered before as big incidents was like, oh, wow, that was really bad. And it's been a few years of hard work emotionally.
And me, because there were like incidents that I knew were assaults and things, and then there were incidents that I hadn't even considered. They were just, well, that's just what happens, and then I was like, actually, that's not okay, is it? And that was a bit of a revelation, actually, as it goes. But I think that's the case for a lot of women, not just autistic women. But you have got that added layer then of being quite vulnerable.
Yeah, I mean, the stats around sexual harassment and assault and abuse in autistic women are sky high, far more than what's reported for the neurotypical population.
Yeah, I mean, one study said 78% of autistic women will have been sexually abused at some point. And then if you've got ADHD as well, there's an increased risk with that. And also on top of that, there's some evidence that suggests that autistic women are more likely to enter into or remain in abusive relationships, whether that's physical abuse or sexual abuse as well. I remember reading a quote about a teen girl, and I can't remember off the top of my head where it was from now, the reference, but she had said, well, I'm in a relationship with this boy, and yes, he hits me, but I only see him once a week. So I only get hit once a week, whereas if I didn't have a boyfriend, then the girls in school would bully me every day. So the sums make sense.
The sums make sense.
Kind of echoes what I was saying earlier. Yeah, the sums make sense. But yeah, I think that there's a lot that we're sort of told to expect, or how to behave, or lots of things around being female as well that we can take quite literally.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that you see in autistic girls in particular, it's a broad generalisation, but you can see the girls who study what being a girl is and are hyper feminine and everything pink and really, I'm not saying they don't enjoy that, but you kind of see the extremes. I find it very difficult to understand that I'm expected to dress a certain way, behave a certain way, have certain aspirations in life just because of my sex or gender.
Yeah. Autistic people often don't conform to gender in the same way. Something that a friend and colleague of mine said recently, you know, is, oh, we've got this support network for autistic women, although I'm not sure any of us are really women in the true sense of the word, you know, in that we don't subscribe necessarily to the normal kind of ideals of gender. But certainly growing up, I remember vividly, you know, I used to buy the magazines, all of the magazines, and study.
Me too.
How do you know when someone's flirting with you? How do you flirt with somebody else? You know, down to how do I flick my hair and everything. I had it down to a science, you know.
Yeah, it's like Ms. and Sugar magazine were our National Geographic.
Yeah.
17.
Was it 17 or just 17 or something?
17, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember, I can almost picture the article, you know. Yeah, and I really did used to try and emulate that. And sometimes it does go wrong then, unfortunately. And I mean, the other thing for me in the early years of sort of dating and things like that went wrong was that I hadn't had any friends and I had been bullied quite badly. So when suddenly people were taking an interest in me, I thought that meant, well, they liked me. So I'm collecting friends now, which was not the case, was it? You know, in hindsight, I realised that. But at the time, that made me quite vulnerable, I think, as well.
Yeah, and I think that long term, it may make you vulnerable in the sense that if you are struggling with maintaining friendships in your younger years, I think one of the strongest bases for a relationship when you're older is friendship and mutual respect, of course, but friendship should, in my opinion, form the basis for a long-term relationship. And if you struggled with that in the early years, you may not quite appreciate that or know what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think if you've grown up thinking, well, I'm a person that doesn't get mutual respect, then you just kind of internalise that and think, well, I can't expect it then. And unfortunately for lots of people, that's what happens, I think.
Absolutely. That feeling of, before you're diagnosed, if you're late diagnosed like us, that sense of being an alien that has landed on the planet and doesn't understand these gender roles, these relationship expectations, these media tropes, then that never really quite goes away.
No. Well, I mean, I've been diagnosed 3 years now and it's still a work in progress.
Oh yeah.
I think.
Yeah, the years of unravelling.
Yeah.
But like you said, along with the Me Too movement, there's quite a potent mix for those reflections to become quite emotionally difficult to work through, because we want to make sense, because then we blame ourselves. We're that little bit older, we know this much about autism, why can't we fix and logic our way out of all these issues? And but I think we got to give ourselves a little bit more freedom to understand that like we experience those events differently, we're going to process them 10, 15 years later that little bit differently too. Yeah,
I think there is a sense of, I just want to sort it all out now and I want to fix it all and put it behind me, and it's not as simple as that, is it? You can't put a timeline on working through things, I think.
So in those early years, how did you first start recognising romantic relationships or recognising that you wanted one? Were you around the same as your peers in terms of timeline?
I guess I was, in a way. Yeah, I guess I probably was.
Do you think that was truly from your own motivation, or do you think you were mirroring and copying the others?
I think aspects of it were my own motivation and aspects of it perhaps weren't. So yeah, I think that, there were certainly people that I was attracted to and that was genuine, but then perhaps what I wanted to come from that was influenced by what was around me,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.